from the NR Sports Show. This is episode 1030. We are live on all podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, on all the podcast platforms. And today I'm joined with a special co-host today, guest co-host. Her name is Adriana Iafola. She's a big Giant fan here. So really looking forward to having her as a co-host. And today we have a truly, really special guest on today. Her name is, everybody knows her in the NFL world. Her name is Laura Okmin. She's a Fox NFL reporter. And now she is the co-owner and founder of Galvanize, where she helps out young women to get into the same business as she is in. And it's truly amazing what she's doing in the career. I believe she's the GOAT when it comes to women in sports. And Laura, like I said, thank you again for joining us, and it's truly an honor. And fans, please tune in. You can ask questions to Laura today on our Speaker app. So fan interactions is always good on the show. But Laura, thank you for joining us. And like I said, I'm honored and I can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction. It is a pleasure to be here with you both. So thank you for having me.
Anytime. So I'll let Ariana start off here.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to talk to you too. So I jumped at the opportunity to come on here and play co-host. I actually just listened, like Nitin mentioned, I am a huge Giants fan. So I just listened to the Madeline Burke, Her Playbook podcast with you as the guest. And I thought it was really insightful. I loved the advice that you gave, that Charles Barkley gave you. And as I was listening to it and everything like that, so I had a question for you. And I was wondering if maybe you could share a little bit of advice of women trying to get into sports and that whole thing. But my main question is, when you were going through the whole process from this idea that you had to create Galvanize to actually turn it into something, did you have any failures along the way, and anything that ever made you feel like, is this ever going to work? How do I get, the motivation or whatever it is to keep going? And how did you turn that around to really push through and get it to work? So I know, the track is not linear. It's not straight up. There's always ups and downs. So I'd love to hear about the whole process, how it went from idea to turning into this amazing organization.
I love that you went with the failures before the success, because I'm just one that believes there's no such thing as success until you failed. And I believe firmly and strongly in this. There's two choices in life. You either win or you learn. So as soon as I wrapped my head around that, that's when I started looking at things. And instead of thinking win and loss, I started rooting for the supposed loss, because I knew that was the learning. When you're winning, you're too busy celebrating and enjoying to learn anything, as we should. It's so hard to get wins, right? Yeah. So I always like to, enjoy them like desserts. But it's always the times when something doesn't happen that you thought, where you were rooting for, you were praying for it, and all of a sudden you look at it as a failure. But then with the privilege, and space of time, it's always like, that was so important. There's no way I couldn't go through this without it leading to the success. So everything for me in my life, when I look at it, is very much a first act and a second act. And first act was pre-40 and second act was after 40. And 40 was just, my breakdown and my breakthrough. It was, all of a sudden looking around and realizing I had a lot of check boxes, like, yay, all the Super Bowls and the Olympics and network and all these things I had always wanted, but kind of with what you're talking about, Adriana, where I was linear. So I was just going box, 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 box. And so one day at 40, I, kind of looked around and realized I was sad and I was depressed and I was lonely. And I just also happened to have a lot of check boxes, but they weren't correlating. And so that changed everything for me, trying to figure out how to be happy, not just loving a job or not just in a job. And I went to this incredible place. I was living in LA, Googled most spiritual places in Los Angeles, which I didn't really know of any, not really where you think of to go to for like your spiritual journey. And I found a slice of heaven out in the Palisades in the mountains, and I would go there and I would meditate and I would manifest. And I found this book recently. I went there the first day and I just went with a question, and it just said, "What is my purpose?" And I sat there for hours, and I looked back, and this was probably 12 or 13 years ago, now when I found that journal and I looked through it, what I had written down was Galvanize. And it wasn't the name, it wasn't like this is what it's going to look like, but everything I wanted to do is it was the birth of Galvanize. And so the first time that I was trying to figure out how to give back and how to help, I'll never forget this. I reached out to a friend of mine, and we reached out to all these women saying, this is what we want to do. We found our purpose. Like, come, we're going to do this in the backyard, and it's going to be therapy and for women. And not one person showed up. And I think if it was the first chapter, I would have quit. I would have been like, well, I was wrong. What does anybody care about what I say? Nobody cares. And I would have went in my head, but it made me laugh so hard where I was like, well, God is telling me something. Because if 2 people showed up, I'd be like, all right, 2 people, but literally not one person showed up. And what it showed me was I wasn't yet ready to be the teacher. I still had a lot to learn before anybody even cared what I said. So it made me do some more work for about a year to go, well, what do I have to learn before I can teach it? And once I figured that out, and then the genesis of Galvanize was born from there, and all of a sudden rooms filled up with women. So it was, some people would look at it as a failure. I looked at it as a learning lesson, as one of the most important things I needed to learn.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Amazing, right there. So speaking of Galvanize, we had 2 of your women from there, Tony Whitmore and Alexandra Smith, and we learned a lot from their interviews. And for you, what's it been like seeing their growth and the rest of the women that are part of your program? And what's it been like for you just to see them and exceed at the highest level?
I'm not a mom. I don't have my own children, and it gives me a feeling like I hope that I would have if I was a mom. That I'm really proud of what I've done and proud of my career, but it's very selfish. It's about me. It's about my growth. And at some point that really wasn't doing it for me anymore. And so watching these incredible women like the 2 you've mentioned blossom into these incredible women and having confidence in themselves and confidence in each other, and watching them shine, not just on camera, but off of the camera, my heart grows 20 sizes each time. It's just, I'm so proud of them. And I truly do feel like when people ask me about, did you want kids or why don't you have kids? I'm like, I have over 4,000, that I look at every one of these incredible young women with a mother's heart. And I'm just so proud to be part of their journeys, and proud that they've allowed me in there.
It's amazing. Do you, as you talk about women like that, and then all of the other women who also have enrolled in Galvanize, and I actually just submitted a form on the website as well. So when you come back east, I hope I can join. Have you noticed, are there certain personality traits or qualities that you've seen in all of these women that you think have been a factor that have helped them succeed through this program?
It's funny because Galvanizes every age and every stage. So we've had as young as 17 in our last boot camp, and we've had as old, air quoting old, as 52, and 2 boot camps ago. And so I see this incredible assortment of women, of all different ages, again, in all different stages, and how they support each other and how they root for each other and how they learn from each other. That the 52-year-old learns as much from the 17-year-old as vice versa. And so what I'd say is also Galvanize is not just for women on camera, it's for women in sports. So we get so many different personalities and so many women who want to do different things. And so what I'd probably say, though, that they all share in common is probably the confidence they have in themselves, even if they haven't found it yet. Because I feel like even if you're applying for Galvanize, it's really uncomfortable. It's you'll see as soon as I get to your email, which I will get to it quickly. But, one of the first things I make everyone do if they are applying for a boot camp is you have to write an essay that tells me who you are at this moment and why Galvanize is being a part of Galvanize is important to you. And what I will write on there is, if I read your essay, you don't get in. If I feel your essay, you're getting in. And so the whole secret sauce to Galvanize is vulnerability, because if we don't share it with ourselves and with each other, we have no shot to get it out of someone else. And so again, before 40, I didn't share anything. I hid behind everyone's story, and I was a good reporter. But what made me turn into a really good reporter and a really good conversationalist was when I started working on my own stuff. And I had to learn how to be vulnerable for that. So Galvanize is just this like well of vulnerability. And so the women usually know what they're getting into. So even if they're having trouble with their confidence at that moment, which a lot of them are, for them to take the time to write down an essay to a stranger, to someone they don't know, and spill the most vulnerable things that they've gone through in life, there's a confidence in that. And so it sometimes just needs a little pushing, and it needs a little molding, and it needs a little time. But if you are taking on a male dominant industry like sports, where you know how much grief you're going to get, you know how much you're going to be told you don't belong here, and you still go, but I want to do that, that tells me that there is confidence in you. We just might have to dig a little to get it out. Dig a little.
Yeah, so we are live with NFL Fox reporter Laura Okmin and the co-founder and owner of Galvanize. So one of my team members joined in. Her name is Kia. She has a good question for you, actually. She wants to know, how did you navigate the grandeur of Fox as a young woman coming into the world of sports?
Great question. I'm really, really fortunate. By the time I got to Fox Sports, I had some confidence, then that took me a while. So by the time I got there, I was probably 10 years into the business. So I probably was closer to 30. Maybe I was a little bit less. Maybe it was actually probably a little bit younger, but I was right around 30. And so even though I had a lot of work to do, and trust me, I still had no confidence, but I at least had some life experience in the business. And so, so navigating it in Montgomery, Alabama, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, and in Chicago when I wasn't ready for Chicago, I wasn't ready to cover Michael Jordan and the Bulls, but that was, the journey I was on. I really struggled with that. By the time I got to Fox Sports, which was so big, by the time I got to do the NFL on Fox sidelines, I had it down a little bit, enough to be like, hey, you got this. Not enough to be like, you're crushing it. I never would have said that to myself, but enough that the voice in my head was like, you got this. So but before Fox, my voice was as negative as everybody else's. My voice was saying, you don't belong. Nobody does want you. Maybe you're not that good. That question sucked. Like that was the voice. But by the time I got to Fox Sports, I think I trained the voice to be more of an ally and to be more of a friend. And that helped everything. So I love that question. And no matter what you're taking on in life, that's always my favorite thing to help women and men work with, which is just how do you make sure that voice in your head is your biggest fan? And that really truly changed my life. Going from you don't belong here to the voice telling me, not only do you belong here, but you're crushing this. Like, look at you. You've been here 20 years, you've been here 30 years, keep doing it. And that started drowning out all the negativity that was coming at me as a woman in a male-dominated industry. And I don't know how old she is who asked that question, Adriana. I'm not sure with you, but again, that's not like you get over that when you're 25 or when you're 35 or when you're 45. If you're a woman in a male-dominated industry, you hear that for your entire career. And so you have to at some point go, this voice has got to be my best friend, or else it's going to be a really tough journey, and probably a little bit of a lonely journey, because you don't want to be alone, and you don't want to be with people because you're so afraid of being, I don't know, called out as a fraud maybe.
Right. Well, you proved the haters wrong, so there you go.
What else is there to do? And also, again, proving the haters wrong, but at the end of the day, it's like what I'm just most proud of is I proved myself right. Yes. For a young woman who was told constantly 30 years ago, you can't do this, and you're not going to do this, and nobody wants you to do this. Even though I had no confidence, somewhere in that little 20-year-old brain, I was like, you got this, like, let's try it. And I don't know where that came from, because I was so sad and had no confidence then, but thank God had enough to say, let's do this. And yes. So that's what I can't get enough of with Galvanize. For all these young women who come in and they're like, I don't think I can do this. I'm like, let me add them, let me turn your brain around. Give me one day with you. We're going to do this. And it's not a gender thing. I work with plenty of young men, and we have a lot of, and we work a lot with men. the insecurities that we do. They talk about imposter syndrome as much as we do.
Mm.
I think you're breaking up a little bit. Oh, yeah, can you hear? Yeah, I got you. There you go.
Here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, there you go.
Hello.
Sorry.
Make it better.
Breaking
I'm
up.
sorry. I'm going to keep refreshing my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now, right? Yeah, we got you.
I hear you.
Okay. I'll keep refreshing my Wi-Fi too.
Okay. Adriana, you can go if you want.
Okay. So it sounds like you've done a lot of work and you've grown a lot to get yourself to a place where you can switch that narrative in your head. Do you still have bad days now? And if you do, what are your tactics to turn them around, to fix that voice in your head?
Yes.
I'll use some tips.
Totally. All of us. Yes, of course I do. But I think now, after doing a lot of work and being at an age that I love, I think I'm really good at knowing what a bad day is
Mhm.
versus making it bigger than that. You know, I don't chase rabbits down holes anymore. And I'm really good at being able to go, is this a bad day? Is it something I can control, or should I just have a bad day and feel it? And what am I trying to learn from it? And I think I'm obsessed with growth. I'm obsessed with learning, you know, not just asking people what they've learned, but my own. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I do is not chase rabbits down rabbit holes and make it worse. What I try to do is examine it. I examine it and go, why do I feel this way? Is there something I can do from it? Is there something I can learn from it? And probably more importantly, where I'm at in life, is there something I can teach from it? So I don't run from bad days. I really wrap my arms around them and go, what's wrong? You know, what's up? And one of the things I do before every football season, and I try to get everybody to do this, before every football season, I'll make a list of what lights me up. And it can be one thing or it can be 100 things, whatever is kind of, you know, lighting me up at that moment. And I go deep. I don't just say building relationships, but that is my favorite thing that lights me up. But I'll put, you know, building relationships, making existing ones stronger, creating new ones to make sure that I'm even specific about building relationships. And what I'll do when I feel stuck is I'll open up that list, and I know one of two things has happened. Either something has changed, you know, that there's new things that light me up and I need to make a list, or I'm not doing anything that lights me up. I'm sliding back into the work only mode. And so I'm really big on viewing happiness as an action, not as a noun. And so it's not enough for me to go, why do I not feel happy, and just kind of sit there. I'll go, well, why don't I feel happy? And let me figure that out and find something that does. So, so I guess that's probably one of my biggest pieces of advice I have, is just making sure that when you feel stuck, to examine it and not to go, this is such a silly analogy, but I remember my hairstylist telling me one day, we were talking about this, and she said, I won't cut anybody's hair dramatically if they're pregnant, if they just had a baby, or if they're depressed. You know, that she said, like, that's not the fix, you know, like, it's not the hairstyle. And I was like, oh my God, you need to get a therapist license and charge quadruple what you're charging right now. But I feel like that when I have a bad day, I don't make it bigger than what it is. I try to know, what is it? What can I do to get out of it? And how can I learn from it? And how can I teach from it?
Wow.
That's such good advice.
Yeah, amazing advice. Yeah, so tell our fans, what's it been like for you working at Fox as an NFL reporter, and obviously it's an amazing outlet and a lot of great talent that you work with also. But what's that been like for you, just to be there and being part of Fox Sports?
Amazing. We do a seminar every year. We're about to do it in a couple of weeks, and we all meet out in California, and it's everybody who is involved in the NFL on Fox, all the on-air people from the studio, from the field, all of our individual teams, and the producers and the directors and our bosses. And you know, the first time I walked in that room, probably almost 15 years ago now, I was in awe of the room. I mean, to walk into a room and see, Jimmy Johnson and Terry Bradshaw and Troy Aikman and Howie Long and, and go on and Joe Buck and not see that. I mean, one, I'm looking at them as a fan, but now I'm a teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And so the cool thing about working at a place like this is that never leaves you. So, I feel the same when I see them still. I'm just so lucky and fortunate that I get to go, hey, and they know my name, and I can talk to them. But it's a really cool place we go to every year. And I watch all the people who are staying there who have no idea we're there. They're just there on vacation. And I watch them as they see all of us walk through, the hallways, and they're losing their minds, as fans all of a sudden to like, oh my gosh, bump into Greg Olson, or oh my gosh, bump into Terry Bradshaw. And I know the feeling, it's really neat to be at a place as long as I have been and adore the people you work with on my team and in the big family. And what a blessing I've gotten to do it this long. It's pretty great.
Sounds amazing. So I have a question because, as I've said, and you can tell by my shirt, I'm a huge Giants fan.
I should have said Michael Strahan. Sorry about that.
Michael
And Michael Strahan.
Love Strahan. But what I need to know, this is my biggest question for reporters. When you are on the sideline for your team, how do you keep it together and not be biased?
I truly mean this. I'm a Chicago girl. That's where I was raised and grew up very much, on Sundays going, watching or going to Bears games. And what I would tell you is it changes when you cover teams. So now I feel it I do feel it when I work a Soldier Field game. Because two reasons. One, when I'm walking the field, people will yell, and I usually don't look up because sometimes they're not nice, so I try not to. But look up at people, and that's pretty cool. And two, when people get kicked off the field before the anthem, it's really neat for me to be standing on Soldier Field, allowed to stand there, allowed to stand there and not be kicked off. Like the 10-year-old little girl in me dies every time, right? Like, oh my God, like look at where you are. Yep. So I have those moments every time I'm at Soldier Field, but I mean this sincerely. I don't root for teams. I root for good people. Like I like everything. So I have so many now friends and people I care about, and their wives and their girlfriends and their children and their parents. And so I find myself rooting hard with my heart for individuals, but it's probably not so much as a team anymore. So you kind of lose that. I love the Giants, but mostly because I love the PR group, because that's who I deal with all the time. So it's an incredible group of people that I care for them. But I also know I root for a lot of their coaches and a lot of their players. But sometimes when a game starts, I don't even know which way I'm going until all of a sudden something happens and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know I was rooting for them. But because it's probably because of somebody that I know who really needs a good game.
Okay.
So
good people over good teams.
The next time when you go see your Fox crew of Michael Strahan, Troy Aikman, Jimmy Johnson, you can tell them that you were on a Cowboys Giants podcast, because I'm a Cowboys fan. So
I mean, I got Cowboys going right here.
Let's go.
I feel the same, and again, like that's I love that Cowboys coaching staff dearly. So I root hard for that staff, and so. It's interesting, but it's fun also. It's kind of, you don't plan on it. It's just all of a sudden when you check in with your head and your heart, you really realize like, oh, I root for sports so differently. So in a way, it's a little sad because you lose that fandom, that you're so used to, but in a way it's so much cooler because you're rooting for human beings that you really know and like.
So we have another fan question for you that just popped in here. Someone wants to know, what was your most memorable challenges that you dealt with that maybe could offer hope to others?
That's so good. That's just such a good life question. I think if I was going to, make a list of just the most important things that happened in my life, they'd all probably be it would be a very depressing list.
Yeah.
Because I I would write down everything hard that I've gone through, and they all led to this amazing second chapter. But I lost my mom when I was 23, and that changed who I was for a very long time. Still, still does, and so I didn't know anybody at that time who had lost a parent, and when I started talking about it with people, what I noticed was nobody wanted to talk about it because it made them so scared to lose a parent, and they'd start crying, and I'd say, "What are you crying about?" And they'd say, "Because I'm so sad one day that's going to happen to me." And so what I started doing was going, "Well, then I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to make you." I kept inside for so long. And I think that really shaped who I was, of not going to therapy and mourning quietly and privately. And I started doing that with all the hard things I went through in life. And I really had to learn that the way to get through it was to share and to stop, like I said before, to stop hiding behind other people's stories. I'm really good at asking, what have you gone through? What have you overcome? What's the hardest thing in life that you've dealt with? I just wasn't asking myself that. And so my biggest piece of advice with everything you're going through, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's to make sure you stop and do the work of what am I going to learn? And I will say this, I didn't go to therapy until, after 40. And so again, should have went really early, but I remember sitting with that therapist and her saying, "Give me a list of the 10 best things that came out of your mom passing." And I was so startled by that. And I was like, "I won't give you one. There's nothing good that came from my mom passing. And I won't look at it that way." And she's like, "Okay, I hear you." And she said, "What if we framed it as, give me 10 ways you have changed or who you've become since your mom passed?" And I was like, I could do that. And so I made a list of 10 ways, of ways that I grew. And when I looked at that list, it, filled my heart and broke my heart, because that list was my 10 best qualities. And so I would give them all back for my mom to have lived a longer life, but it made me really look at loss and hard times differently, and going, it doesn't feel like at the time anything good is coming out of this, but at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, when you look at how you are changing because of it, usually it's your best stuff.
Yeah.
So again, to lean into that instead of running from that, because you don't get to run for long. At one point, you're going to be 40 years old or 50 years old or 60 years old, and it's going to smack you in the face and go, I have baggage I should have been dealing with. So my biggest thing is to look at everything that happens to you, especially the bad stuff, as a gift, and what am I supposed to get out of this?
Well said. Yeah, that's sorry for your loss. That's and it's always tough when you lose a family member, and obviously you're honoring her with what you're doing now, so it's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. There's no bigger compliment you could give me.
Amazing.
Adriana.
Do we have any more fan questions?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask you this. So what would you say your most memorable interview you have done so far in your career on Fox Sports with NFL? It could be anybody, actually.
It's so funny. I'll be asked that, and a lot of times people will be like, "What's the favorite conversation you've had?" And I mean this. I'm always like, whatever one I'm in. Like I don't care if it's on a field or if it's on a plane. Like, I am into I'm into hearing people's stories, finding them out, and sharing them. But recently, there's been one that I've loved. My favorite ones are usually the quiet ones, and are usually the guys that take a long time to get to know. I can go on and on for hours and talk about what it was like to cover Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley. Like, I've got some incredible stories.
Wow.
But I also know that those weren't quite, it didn't take me 3 years to get in, because they're used to people. They're used to conversations. They're used to doing interviews. But as I got older, I really was like, I love the ones I've got to work for. And the last couple of years, it's been Aaron Donald with the Rams, and Aaron is just so quiet, and so that can come off very intimidating, and can come off very aloof. With he's standing next to you or in front of you, staring at you as you're talking and not saying much, and you can kind of back up real quickly. But I remember one time talking to different people about him, and I would always say, I can't get Aaron to talk about himself what do you talk about with him? Like, what do I need to know about him? Because I can't get him to say anything. And I just thought, again, he was kind of aloof. And what they would all talk about was how hard he practiced. Like, that was always it. And so I was like, that's interesting. So I said to Aaron one day, a couple years ago, I said, at what point weren't you the best at football? And he was like, why do you ask that? And I said, well, because I've been asking everyone about you, and everyone talks about how hard you practice. So I know at one point you weren't that good because you had to practice so hard to be noticed. And he smiled and he said, actually, it's the opposite of that. And I said, what do you mean? So he said when he was a young boy, he had a lot of social anxiety, a lot of anxiety, period. He was painfully shy and so quiet that his teachers wanted to hold him back. And so didn't have friends, but he was the big kid. And so one time a coach came up to him and said, have you played football? No. Would you want to? Sure. And he was really good from the second they put him out there. And he said he started watching people notice him, recognize him, and follow him, and he didn't have to talk. So he said football became his language.
Wow.
And so just learning that made me see him completely different. All that time I've been like, he's kind of aloof, he's shy.
Right.
And so I did that report on a Sunday during a Rams game, and I've never gotten a bigger wave of a reaction. That I got it on Twitter, I got it in DMs, I got it from my friends, and everybody would say either they had social anxiety or they had a child that did, and they made them watch that report to say, look at what Aaron Donald did. And I told Aaron that, and I got the greatest hug from him. The first hug I got from him, I showed him some of the text and was like, I just want you to see when you step into your platform the way you are, how much it affects so many people. And then I added this. I told him this, right before the Super Bowl. But I started taking that story and sharing it with all the quiet players that I talked to. And every one of them would just sit and like nod as I would say the story, and they'd be like, Aaron Donald said that? And I'm like, yeah. And then they'd add, well, when I was young, I went through that. Or when I was younger, I was depressed and I didn't talk. So what I told him at the Super Bowl was, last time I talked to you about this, I wanted to share about the impact you're making on kids. Now what I would like to do is show you how much by you opening up and being vulnerable, all these men are now adding to that. So I went from one incredible story about Aaron Donald being vulnerable and sharing his heart to now that's the quickest way I can get a player to open up to me when I share that story with Aaron. So it's just, I'm in love with people using vulnerability and using their platform and inspiring. And it's been really cool to watch Aaron Donald step into that. So old me, meaning younger me, probably loved the like Michael Jordan conversations because how cool, I'm talking to Michael Jordan. But
awesome.
the older I get, I would tell you my favorite conversations are the meaningful ones that like I just can't get out of my head because they're such purposeful, incredible stories.
Wow. All we can say is shout out to that coach who gave Aaron Donald a chance because he's a Super Bowl champion. He's a future Hall of Famer. So there you go.
Yes.
Isn't that true? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, you think about if a coach didn't find him, what would have happened, right? Like to all these quiet young boys and girls today too, of just, if you don't have a teacher or a coach who sees that in you, they're telling you you're slow. They're telling you we have to hold you back. They're telling you all of this, and not knowing he had all of that inside of him. It just didn't, he needed some time and a different way for it to come out. So I love that. That's such a great way of reminding coaches and teachers too, to like go for those quiet ones and see what's going on in there.
Yeah. So smart. Sorry. That is my.
I thought it was like a champagne pop. I didn't even know it was a dog. I was like, yeah, we're celebrating Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
It is almost 5:00.
It's almost food time. I'm going to hear barks. I get it.
Yeah. So, Adrian, I guess we'll do it. All right. You up for a Q&A with our fans real quick?
Of course.
Okay. We'll take some fans questions here, more of a fans question. So one of the fans want to know, outside of work, what do you like to do?
I am madly in love with my husband and with my 2 dogs. And so if I am not working, I'm probably in my house or in the car or somewhere with my 3 boys.
Wow.
I didn't have a life for so long. I just had a job. So now Having a life is pretty incredible. My husband produces movies.
Hmm.
And so we go live places for like 3 months at a time while he shoots. And so one of the benefits of not having kids is I can just go and move places with him. And so right now we're getting ready for another movie, and I get to go hang on a movie set. You know, how cool is that? So I get to sort of have this like little fantasy life going on in my life. So chances are I'm with my husband, I'm with my 2 dogs, and we're doing something we love, which probably is a country concert also. I'm obsessed with live music. We live in Nashville. So if we have a day off, there's a good chance we're finding some music somewhere and enjoying it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thanks for asking that. Like, again, I know my whole second act has been about a life, not a job. And so who you are, not what you do. And so I always love when somebody asks the who you are question, because I know we talk a lot about what we do in life, but I'm always for the like, what makes you happy? Like, let's put work out of it for a second. So thank you for asking.
So another fan question out here. Someone wants to know, what are you most looking forward to this season when it comes back? Obviously, there's no off season for NFL. It's 24 hours. They work continuously working. Training camp is starting soon, and all these players are back and working hard. So as reporters for like Fox Sports, for example, what are you guys most looking forward to when it comes to the season?
We'll do, when we get to the seminar in a couple of weeks, we'll all go through all the storylines that everybody does, you know, that what makes us excited, and which teams and new coaches and new players, where they are, and you know, and who has more pressure, and who's the teams that we're not expecting, you know, who are our Bengals this year. And so we do a lot of that. And that's kind of the reporter hat. But selfishly, again, as a person, what I would say is just I miss it. You know, like, my favorite part of my job is 3 hours before kickoff. I get to just walk around a field, and I get to go catch up. I get to go talk to the coaches and talk to the players and the PR staff and the athletic training staff and everybody. It's like this great office that you're at. And so the game is awesome, and I love those 3 hours, but the 3 hours before is when I get to be, you know, like, how are your kids? How are you? What'd you do this summer? How fast did it go? You know, so I can't wait for that, because I miss everybody. You know, that's such a big part of my life. So I'm a fan like everybody else. I can't wait to see the storylines, and I can't wait to see who comes out of nowhere. I can't wait to see, you know, how the new coaches do at different places, or the new players. But at the end of the day, selfishly, I'm just really excited to see everybody again. And it feels like you're going back to college. You know, you get back up, you get back up to campus, and you're like, yay, you know, after summer break, we get to all hang out again. So that's what I look forward to starting now.
Nice.
Best.
All right, we'll take one more fan question here. Someone wants to know your thoughts on the Raiders making history, hiring the first female African American. Her name is Sandra. I don't want to get this wrong. Sandra Douglas Morgan. So what are your thoughts on her?
Love it, love it, love it. Can't say enough about it. I was always asked when I started being interviewed, always about women. You know, why aren't there women play-by-play in football? Why aren't there women GMs? Why aren't there women presidents? And I would always say, or coaches, especially coaches, and I would always say, I think we're getting there. It just won't be in my lifetime. And I've never been more fired up to be wrong in my life. So I hate that we still have to stop and ring the bell every time, because it just, you know, we should be past that. But I love that it's starting to happen in more and more positions. In 30 years in this business, it's been cool to see more and more women as reporters, because there weren't many when I got into it. And now, you know, you can't count, there's so many. But we're not going to make a true sustainable, long-term defining change in sports until women are higher up, you know, that they're the executives and they're the ones making the decisions and hiring. And so the Raiders have always been on the forefront of change, and always have have never been afraid to hire a first. So I'm not surprised it was them. I'm delighted for her, and I'm more delighted for all the young women now who go, well, cool, I didn't know I could do that, but now that's the direction I'm going in.
Wow. Hey, Johnny, you got anything else?
Yeah, I have one more question for you. So I am a big morning person. So I'd love to know, if you're a morning person, what is your routine like if you have one? Judging by that face, no.
No, my morning routine is like, how much more can I sleep? Like at the end of the day, getting into your 50s, I'm always like, the best thing I can say, like a beauty secret, is sleep. Like, I can't stress that enough to you guys. Like, taking care of your skin and sleep is everything. So I am really big at, that shift from like running and needing 3 hours to now like, yeah, 7 and 8. So I need a good 7 to 8 hours. So no, my morning starts a little later than most, but we start it with walking our dogs in the morning and not getting on our phones. So that really probably is the most important thing to me, is whatever time I wake up or don't wake up in the morning, um, that not to reach over for that, for that pacifier,
Yeah.
which it's so easy. But I just know that in no time in the history of these phones have I started my day on this and felt better about it.
Wow.
It's just, it never happens now in the world more than ever. So I'm really intentional now how I wake up, and making sure that, my husband and I wake up and say good morning and say I love you, and what we're excited about, for our day, and about connecting with him, taking the dogs for a walk, and then settling into work. But I know everyone can't do that. Again, I can start a little later. My hours are a little weirder, but man, if you can give yourself a break from that phone in the morning and start the day with your intention and your mood and what you want to get out of it versus that little box, that's a game changer to me. I'm sorry I could not give you anything more than that.
That's okay. And what kind of dogs do you have?
Rhodesian, I'm looking to see if I have any pictures, but I don't. I need to do that. Rhodesian Ridgebacks.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're about 100 pounds, and they're bred in Africa to hunt lions. And so they're very brave, but they're more like cats. They're a little bit more aloof. So they're just like, both of them are hanging out right outside my door right now, and kind of quiet and kind of chill, and really good protectors, and great dogs, and they're just beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, we have a golden doodle.
Ah, the perfect dog. Like two perfect mixes right there.
So
What
I have
kind
an English bulldog. That's
of
the
English
Oh,
behind me.
what's his name?
It's a girl. Her name is Jada. We just adopted her about a year and a half ago.
Better than I thought, because it was
Oh, I thought that was me. A year and a half ago. So is she a year and a half, or was she older?
She's older. She's 6 now.
Wow.
I could talk all day about dogs, just so you all know. It's good that you ended it versus started that. But our older dog, who's 4, his name is Booyah. And my best friend for over 2 decades was Stuart Scott. And so it's a very special name to us. But the coolest thing is, anytime we're at a park or anywhere where like Booyah gets away from us and someone will look down and see his name, they'll always yell. We'll always know where he is, because somebody will yell, Booyah! And it makes us so happy that every time that dog's name is said, everyone says it with such like exuberance. So it's a very special guy and a very special name.
Wow. Yeah.
Awesome.
See, our golden doodle, she wakes us up every morning at 5 o'clock, and then we take her for a walk at 5:15 every morning, and then she eats her food, and then there you go. That she knows the time when to wake up. 5 o'clock. She always wakes up 5 o'clock. Yeah. She always wakes
My
up.
dog does the exact same thing. But luckily for us, she is quite lazy, so we don't have to walk her in the morning. She just is 5 o'clock on the dot. It's breakfast time, and then I'm going back to bed.
It is amazing, their little clocks, isn't it? Like, all of a sudden, when you said it's almost 5 o'clock, I was like, is it? But luckily I'm on a different time zone, because my dogs would have been barking like at 4:58, like, let's go, lady, like the food is out.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk dogs all day, you guys? Can you
We can
call
do
me
a dog
back?
pod. We can do a dog podcast next time if you want.
I'm in. I am in.
But,
I will put some pictures up there of the dogs. I need to do that.
So before we get to the last two things, I just want to bring up mentorship in this industry. Obviously, it's really important for a young broadcaster reporter to have mentors, and I have two of them. I have Tina Savasio as my mentor, and I have Ryan Field from ABC. So and I consider I want to ask you about Amy Trash. When was the first time you got connected with her? Because I consider her my other mentor too, because she's been along the way. She's been supporting our show for a long time. We even had her on our show too, and she always loves her stuff. And obviously she's an amazing woman in the sports industry like you. So when was the first time you got connected with her, and what's it like seeing her grow too?
The first time, I mean, she was already grown by the time I met her. I was, like I was just starting, and I just remember I was doing a Raiders game, and so I was young, and she's not probably, I'm sure she was the first woman executive I met in the NFL, and doing a Raiders game and being very intimidated, and being very nervous to meet her, and how quickly she was kind, and how quickly she, like, Laura, how are you? Tell me about you. And made me feel so comfortable. Her energy reminds me very much of Leslie Visser. And that's who I was really intimidated. And that's, who I looked up to as, as a young woman in broadcasting. And the first time I met Leslie, she was the same way. I was walking into a restaurant. We were sitting together as a group, and I was really nervous to meet her. And she locked eyes with me, and she's like, "You are sitting next to me." And I was like, "Okay." And that's Amy's energy. So I don't get to see Amy nearly the amount I wish I could, but I know that every time I see her, I feel like I've been best friends with her for a million years. And a Twitter reaction, and you know that, right? There's a kindness that radiates from her, and a goodness that radiates from her. That if we could bottle that up and sell it, it would fix a lot of this world. But for her to be as kind as she is, and to have accomplished what she has, and how she mentors and how she takes care of people and treats people, she is an inspiration in a whole lot of ways. And to be honest, the sports part is probably the least impressive. It's about who she is, and she's accomplished a hell of a lot. So not to minimize what she's done, but she's incredible.
Yeah. So the last two things here before we close this out. Our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. I'm sure you know him. And he now is coaching at Grambling State University, HBCU school. And we're trying to help him and his team prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe and the kids stay safe, and everybody stays safe. It's so horrible out there what we're seeing when it comes to human trafficking. So we'll send you the foundation so you can go check it out.
I love it. I love you guys are using this platform for. I love it. I'll talk sports and talk life all day, but man, when there's a good purpose behind it, that's everything. So thank you for what you're doing, and I will look forward to getting it from you.
Yeah, thank you. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the essential workers right now?
I'm so sorry. I just lost you for a second.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the essential workers right now?
Oh my gosh. Like if I could just take my heart out and hand it over, I would do that. My God, that's such a big, over the last few years, I mean, with COVID and watching our country split apart, and watching us go to all these dark places. It's the one group who we've been able to count on that have put aside everything with their health and probably with their politics and their thoughts of what was happening, and their sole purpose has been to help us get through this. So so I could talk on, and it wouldn't be eloquent and nearly good enough. So I guess all I would say is just thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, I don't know what else there is except thank you for doing what you're doing for all of us.
Adriana, you want to add anything else before we close this up?
Yeah, I mean, I'll second what Laura said. I have, friends who are nurses and doctors and essential workers, and they just have really been incredible throughout this whole time. And thank you doesn't seem like enough, but I really thank them for all that they've done. And Laura, it's been so amazing getting to talk to you. Thank you so much for being able to join us. And I have to thank Nitin for asking me to join, because I was really excited to talk to you, and this interview is amazing. So thank you for answering all of my questions.
I've so enjoyed, and I cannot wait to get you at a boot camp. So just know we are getting you in for the next cycle.
Let's go.
Can't wait. I would love it. I'm so excited.
So
Thank
before we
you.
close this out, where can our fans find you on social media?
They can find me at Laura Okmin. It's pretty simple, and on Twitter and Instagram.
So there it is. That wraps up episode 1030 with the amazing, talented NFL reporter. She is the co-owner and founder of Galvanize. Go check her out, Laura Okmin. She is amazing, the best, the GOAT, in my opinion, the GOAT of women in sports. And thank you for joining us. It's truly an honor. And I want to say thank you to our fans for tuning in and asking amazing questions. That I think that's the most in-depth questions we got from our fan base in a while on the show. Thank you to the fans, and thank you, Adriana, for joining me as a co-host today. But Laura, keep up the amazing work. I can't wait to see you on the sidelines again for NFL Sundays or whenever you start working again. But keep it up, and we would love to have you back on the show so you can meet the full team. And we'll definitely do a dog podcast too. So
I love it. I'm in. I promise it'll be a wall of dogs behind me.
Perfect.
It was lovely meeting you both. Thank you so much for such a meaningful conversation. Appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.